Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Johnson, and you are watching Thought by Thought Healing, where I talk about everything related to chronic pain and chronic symptoms and how to reverse them. I discuss the mind-body connection and how it can be the cause and the cure for many different types of chronic symptoms. I come at this from a Christian perspective, so if that's important for you, then you should subscribe. I think the button is right there, or it might be right there. Either way, you should subscribe. So I'm actually packing right now to head to Europe tomorrow. I have never been to Europe, partly because pain stopped me and partly because of other reasons. But I'm super excited. I'm heading to Prague with my childhood best friend, and her husband actually already has to be there. So her and I are going to meet him there, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I'm doing this video kind of in advance because I will be gone next week, and then just be coming back for the next Saturday. So I have a couple that will release while I'm gone. But so I wanted to talk about the long game of healing. And I'm going to use the analogy of a battle versus a war. And this has no political connotations right now. So let it go of anything related to that and more kind of visualize the analogy of what is happening when we're looking at the healing journey through and out of chronic pain. So first we have to know what is the war that we're fighting and name it. And the war is generally for us something along the lines of being out of chronic pain, no longer having chronic symptoms, no longer having chronic fatigue, something along those lines. And once we can name that, it's actually important to let it go, because from here on, it's not our goal. We are not working on a daily basis. No, we're not working on being pain-free. And that seems counterintuitive, but the pressure of trying to rewire your brain in one day or in 2 weeks is just not possible. And when we set that as our goal and our benchmark of success for any sort of activity, any sort of battle that we'll talk about, then we're going to be disappointed, and we're going to even start to dread the very things that we're trying to do to heal. And so it's important to let go of that big vision. We can pray about it and leave it at the cross and trust Him in that process, and then head towards our game, our brain, our heads being in the game of the battles that lead to that winning the war, if you will. So now we know what the war is, but when it comes to the battles, what are those battles? And at that point in time, we kind of need to know what are the battlefronts. And to me, it's easiest to divide this into two pieces, maybe, or two battlefronts. So one is going to be the physical end of your body or your brain is reacting to physical movement, sensations, different activities as dangerous and is causing the pain. And so we want to address that. And then we also have the front of emotions. And I tend to personally, this is my own thing, I tend to divide that into 3 parts. And those 3 parts are our personality traits, emotions themselves, and maybe the experiences that came or come with them. And then the way we talk, feel, and think about ourselves. All those 3 things are things that we need to work on. So that is a battlefront on its own. Now, I just want to pause really quick here and just mention that if you have trauma in your past, then this war is going to be a little bit harder for you. And I say that not because I want to discourage you, but because I actually want to encourage you. Because if you have expectations that you're going to be able to rewire your brain in all these areas really quickly, that can be discouraging and disappointing. My heart goes out to you because I know that this is more work and more challenging for you than it is or was for me. So I encourage you to have compassion and kindness, patience, curiosity towards yourself in this process because it's needed. So I am proud of you for joining the battle and for doing this work. I just want to pause and honor that. Be proud of yourself for doing this work. Okay, So now going back, we've got the two battlefields. We've got my east, which is physical, and we've got my west, which is the emotional. So first of all, in war, if we have the enemy show up at a certain place in your country, if you will, we show up to the battle. We don't run from the battle. And until you've started mind-body work, I can probably guess that you've been running from it, which means pain shows up, you don't do the thing, and you avoid it because it seems like it's hurting you. And that's actually the opposite. It's counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what we want to be doing. Pain is an indicator that there's something that needs to be healed, and so we need to move towards it, not away from it. If we run from the battle, then the enemy takes over a portion of your country, or in this case, your brain. It is now dominating a certain part of your brain, and it's wired in this way. And going back to that compassion piece for people who have trauma, and even for those of us who didn't have trauma, whose brains are wired in this certain way, it is not your fault that your brain is wired this way. And so we don't want to have a sense of guilt or shame about this. There is no shame in having a brain that is wired in a certain way. Because life does this to us. This is the problem with sin. When we experience sin or things get twisted and we get the wrong message, even if it's accidentally, this is part of the fallen world that we live in. But we still want to show up with this newfound knowledge, information, and empowered with Christ and through Christ to show up to these battles. But we also need to know what is the battle and what is winning too. So let's start with what is the battle. With the physical side over here, we can pretty easily identify what are the areas we need to show up for. So for example, for me, walking was painful. So I needed to show up and fight the battle of walking. But I did that through graded exposure, which means really slowly, introducing a very small amount, visualizing walking, maybe seeing pictures of people walking, and then actually doing a small amount of it more and more. I was never to the point where I couldn't walk at all, but the walking itself was painful. The point remains that we want to start slow in whatever the thing is that your brain has determined needs to have pain as a warning signal. So that's pretty easy to see. The physical ones are pretty clear, but the emotional ones are harder to figure out. They're harder to find. And so the biggest and most powerful tool that we have in relation to this is writing. And there is a massive amount of research that has shown that writing is incredibly healing. So I want to read a list of just a preliminary search that I did around writing. And also for those of you who are triggered by writing, then please stay listening, because this is important for you, and there's some workarounds here. So don't lose hope. So a few of the things I found when I did my Google search was writing strengthens your immune system. It strengthens your mind. It has physical benefits, improvements with asthma and rheumatoid arthritis, reduction of stress, healing old emotional wounds. People who write visit the doctor less, and a greater sense of well-being, not to mention all the physical pain reduction that we find from this. So we know that writing is a powerful tool. And part of the reason is because when we write, we start to uncover our subconscious emotions and the ways that we're operating. And that's a big part of the work, is just getting to, well, what are my battles? So over here on the physical side, we start to battle them by moving our body, using it, changing the way we respond to our sensations through somatic tracking and breathing activities, different ways that we can work around the physical front. But on the emotional front, if you start writing, first of all, most people will find a great relief of pain, and emotional distress, but also if you have a flare-up, if you have pain come about as you are writing, then this is an indicator that this is a battlefront for you. There are things in here in the same way that if your brain says don't walk, we don't bow down to it, run the other way. Well, I guess you can't run the other way if you can't walk, but you get my point. In the same over here, this is a big flag. This is an indicator that something is amiss here. And it may be that your brain is responding to an emotional memory that feels dangerous, or maybe it is an experience that the brain doesn't want to think about, or an emotion that you were taught is dangerous and it's not okay to feel that emotion. We want to show up to these battles. But how do we show up? And this is where the key is. Winning the battles, even so we've already let go of this war, right? But winning the battles is not about not having pain. It is not about reducing pain. I know we want it to be this, but it's not. If you decide whether or not you're winning in the healing game based on how much pain you're experiencing, then you are going to dread it and feel defeated. And you're not going to want to continue to show up to the battlefield. The goal of the battles is to show up with hope. If you show up with dread and fear and expectation that they're going to cause pain, then the brain will wire dread and fear and expectation that there will be pain related to that thing. And so we want to make sure that it is always that you show up with hope and you show up with excitement and being proud of yourself for doing the hard thing. That is what rewires the brain. I'm going to call it the attitude. It's the attitude, it's the beliefs, it's the emotions, the thoughts. It's how you show up to the graded exposure of writing, if you will, or the emotions that you're experiencing, if you will. So if you're one of those people that's triggered by writing, first of all, my heart goes out to you, because this does mean you carry pain. And we need to use these same gentle experiences that we use around physical graded exposure towards writing. So maybe that means for you that you write 1 minute instead of whatever your goal is. Or maybe it's that you write for 2 sentences. You start really small. I have a client who is starting with doing some mental, emotional processing before writing, because that's where her brain is. And that's appropriate. It is appropriate and good to start exactly where your brain is, with the goal of moving towards safety in a small, gentle, compassionate way. And that gentle, compassionate curiosity, really this whole journey is about getting to know yourself, using curiosity and even adventure, if you will, to learn about who you are, who you've become, who you were, and who you want to be and live out of. And a big portion of this, if not all of it, is about your identity, who the false identity you've been living in, which writing can help you to identify. And so it's really about who you end up being and wanting to be in Christ. And writing is just this powerful tool for that. When we are looking at chronic pain, we're looking at the limbic system being a hot mess. So the limbic system is the emotional part of your brain, and it's the one running the show. The prefrontal cortex is where we do our thinking, executive decisions, and logic. And both those things are very powerful and important, and God created them both. So for those of you who've been taught that emotions are bad, they are not. They are good, and they lead you towards Christ when they are in balance and in check. So we want to find that balance. And part of writing is taking the chaos that's in your emotional limbic system and slowly starting to make sense of and make organization and create calm in the brain. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. And so if the first time you write and the second time and 2 weeks in you're still having symptoms, that's because the brain is still in chaos and you're still making organization of it. And we still don't want to run from that battlefield. We don't want to let the enemy take over that part of the country, if you will. We want to continue to show up with that joy and expectation and the curiosity, the curiosity towards what's happening in your brain. So there becomes more organization in the brain. That's one thing that happens with the writing. There's something called the salience network. For those of you who like the neuroscience of this, there's the salience network in our brain. It's what decides is most important. And right now, when you're in chronic pain, survival is most important, and it's survival against specific enemies. And as we do this writing and emotional work, the brain is able to see which things are actually not currently happening, which things are of the past, which things are over, so they're no longer important. And also, when we're working with current stressors and writing around current emotional struggles, we are turning down how important they are by the organization. That salience network gets to eventually say being present or current life or enjoyment or relationships are actually what's important. But right now, the brain is wired that salience network is saying there are other things that we need to be in survival mode about. So that change is happening in the brain through writing. The writing is actually action motivated. You're doing something. Your motor neurons, which is part of your voluntary nervous system, not your involuntary, is actively, purposely picking up a pen and taking action against that distress, which is really helpful for the brain to see that you're doing something about it. And your prefrontal cortex starts coming back on, and we're able to be present, and our brains just work a little smoother. I had such terrible brain fog, and as I wrote and started to understand what was actually happening in my brain, that relieved a lot of that chaos for me. There's many different benefits that come in the brain from the writing. But again, if this is your trigger, we don't want to give up and run away from the field. You want to show up to whatever battle it is with that hope and that joy. And that is the piece that rewires your brain. I want to be clear about that. It is your attitude and the emotion that you show up for. So I don't care really what you're showing up for. It's how you show up. So make your goals or your battles be within your control. So it's things like I will write for 2 minutes, or I will do my mental emotional processing, or I will do the whole writing assignment. Whatever you're showing up for, you're doing it with the curiosity, hope, adventure. The attitude is what releases the neurotransmitters that rewire the brain so that no longer is writing associated with dread or movement is associated with dread and pain, but now it's starting to be able to rewire in a way that's creating these new neural pathways. You're rewiring your brain with this because it is hope that rewires your brain. It is not dread. Dread will continue down the same path. So if you show up to something you don't like to do with more dread, it will continue to rewire dread to that thing. Actually, it wouldn't be rewire. Rewire would be reinforce. So the battle is about simplified. It's about your attitude, your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions. How are you proud of yourself and excited for showing up? So that pain can be something that we are wanting to run from, and yet it's the opposite. The pain is an indicator. It's an arrow. It's a harbinger. It's a letting you know this is where we want to spend our time, our energy for this battle. And those battles are what eventually, as time goes on, and this is a long game. This is the long game. It is not about a 1 week, boom, I'm healed. And I think that's why people get discouraged often, is because of, if the war is your goal, if you show up to the battles every day and you still have pain and therefore you lost the war, then that's going to make battle and war dreadful for you, and you're going to hate it, and that is going to wire even more. But if your battle is about how you show up, it's about your attitude. It's about hope, regardless of the symptom, and that's really hard. I remember going to the gym and starting at 2 minutes, and I would have pain. And at first I was like, shouldn't this be better? And then I realized this is about me being proud of myself for showing up to the gym for 2 minutes. And then we keep going, adding another minute, keep going. And as slowly, you'll start to see a change in symptoms. But if you don't, keep going. Keep being excited and proud of yourself for doing the work, for showing up to the battle. I just want to look at my sheet and make sure I'm not forgetting anything. All right, there's one more thing. It is okay to lose a battle. It is okay to take Sabbaths. And what I mean by that is we don't overdo it. Sometimes we want to heal so fast that we don't allow ourselves to take a break from healing. And sometimes it is okay to just decide, hey, I'm going to take a day off and I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm not going to do my emotional work. I'm one of those people that was very driven to the point that it was a source of pain for me, which is a very common trait that you find among people with chronic pain, is that we're so driven that driven is a pressure. And you can apply that to healing too. If you are so driven that you never give yourself a break, that's going to be a lot of pressure. So a part of this is being kind to yourself and saying, yeah, I'm going to take tomorrow off and I'm not going to do this. But note that I decided in advance, I need a break. It's not about the pain showing up and me saying, okay, every time this pain shows up, I'm going to back down and I'm going to go ahead and forfeit this battle. We don't want the pain to be the one that wins. And at the same time, we're going to lose some battles, and that is 100% okay. You can still win the war and having lost a few battles. So that's my analogy for the journey, if you will, the big picture of chronic pain, and it takes a while. So settle in and make your goals, your battles appropriate sized, and make sure that they are about the emotion that you are showing up with, the attitude. And then wait on the Lord. And trust God with the big picture of the war and leave it at the cross. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about that for today. So check out my website, which is thoughtbythoughealing.com, and you can follow me on Instagram and on Facebook. And if you liked this video, it would be nice to see that. So again, that button's someplace down there. All right, thanks you guys. I hope you have a great 2 weeks. I will be in Europe for like 9 days. I'm super excited. So wish me well, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Hi guys. I ended that video just a tiny bit too soon. I do want to clarify what writing is not, especially for those of you who it is a trigger for. So writing is not a place where you just go to cyclically vent and repetitively write about distressive emotions. That is not helpful, and that will just enmesh them more into your body. So the writing process should include validating your emotions, kind of getting to the subconscious and giving those emotions a space, but it also allows for the redemptive work of God to show you maybe what subconsciously you have believed about yourself due to things that have happened in the past, and therefore to find a new way of operating, a new identity instead of that false one, a way out, a different way of reacting or responding. It should be a form of empowerment through what God says about us through writing. So hopefully that is helpful and that it doesn't lead you to a dead end of distressing emotions, thoughts, and feelings and beliefs. So it should be hopeful and lead you towards truth. All right, hopefully that helps you out. And again, I will see you guys later. Bye.